Hello, I'm Joseph Giunta, the music director and conductor of the Des Moines Symphony. Welcome to today's DMSO Listening Room. From the pen of this 34-year-old composer, Jan Sibelius' first attempt at a symphony was born from the grandiose and melodic elements similar to Tchaikovsky. This was more coincidental than anything, since both composers admired the Italian bel canto style of Bellini and Donizetti. Sibelius would sit and listen to this music for hours when sung by various singers of the day that would visit him. The piece allowed Sibelius to develop his musical language and style, and expanded the vast expressiveness he yearned to create that he found in melody. Add to this his weaving intervals, colors, and contrasting material throughout the piece, and you'll find a completely gorgeous and successful first stab at a symphony. A mysterious timpani roll begins the piece, then joined immediately by a veiled and ominous clarinet solo. This magical mood is set for the tone of the entire work. The first section has 3 themes, rather than the usual 2. And the first theme in particular is engaging and lush, sweeping in full string regalia and panache. The second movement is slow and gentle lullaby at the start and the end. It has elements for the first movement theme, but in the middle, with a contrasting allegro section, the mood changes to agitation and culminates with 6 thunderous cymbal crashes before returning to its idyllic and tranquil end. The third movement is Sibelius' very first scherzo, and is incredibly successful and exuberant. It's reminiscent of Anton Bruckner. The timpani plays an important part in this movement, as does the brass and woodwinds, culminating in an exciting finish. And the finale, marked quasi una fantasia, like a fantasy, begins with music we know from the first movement, that clarinet solo I spoke about, but this time it's played by the strings, but rather bold and majestic, other than melancholy. Later, a theme is played on the G string of the violins and has the exact harmony of the first theme in the slow movement. These are just several examples of how Sibelius was experimenting with his own unique ideas of just how a symphony should be built. It appears to be free-formed, but actually follows some very strict rules. All the sections lead from one to another quite abruptly, and there are places where a beautiful melody is rudely interrupted, or a cadence simply goes wrong. But this is all part of Sibelius' way of stretching his own talent into ways never been done before. Although the brass finally get the piece back into E minor, it ends in resignation with strange and unfinished answers. Only 2 years had passed when Sibelius completed his most popular symphony in D major, in of all places, Italy. At 35 years old, Sibelius was in poor shape. His youngest sister had died, his marriage was not going well, and he continued to smoke and drink way too much. With all these problems, Italy was inspiring and turned out to be the best medicine for his troubles. By the time he returned to Finland, he had written the entire symphony and wrote, "I have now fallen in love with this piece. I can't tear myself away from it." His first symphony had some extended and broad melodies, but this one demonstrates shorter themes, but more repetition of them. The piece seems icier than the first symphony, conjuring up images of cold, gray, and wind-blown countryside. The first movement is full of short motifs, each having their own personality. It's a strange movement, to say the least, but Sibelius absolutely knew that it was strange. He once said, "It's as if the Almighty had thrown some pieces of mosaic down from the floor of heaven and told me to put them together." This is exactly how the movement sounds, and as the piece unfolds, it gets more and more coherent to the listener. The second movement begins with an ominous timpani roll, like the beginning of the first movement of the First Symphony. But here, the basses begin a long series of restless pizzicato notes in 3/8 time that eventually morphs into 4/4 with a solo bassoon, an instrument that reminded Sibelius of the cold Finnish countryside. This peacefulness is interrupted by some ferocious sounds, and fragments begin to drop off one by one, just the opposite of the first movement. The movement ends abruptly. The scherzo is virtuosic and fast and effective. The trio section features a gorgeous and nostalgic oboe solo, moving once again to the return of the opening. Towards the end of this, a new idea appears. 3 notes, and quickly this becomes the theme of the finale. This theme and the second one, 8th notes played over and over in the lower strings, gives the feeling of tension. This movement slowly unfolds with increasing power and urgency, which eventually resounds in a blazing major ending that soars above anything imaginable, triumphant, majestic, and bold. Remember that mosaic floor that came down from heaven that Sibelius spoke of? Well, it's finally been put back together here. That's it for today's listening room. Remember to go to our website, dmsymphony.org, for video links to the 2 pieces I just spoke about. And if you would like more online content, go to #DMSO@home, which is our series featuring self-produced videos by our musicians from their homes to yours. Thanks so much for watching. Next time, Sibelius' Symphonies 3 and 4.